Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
When you're ready to pop the question, the last thing you want to do is second-guess the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can design a one-of-a-kind ring with the ease and convenience of shopping online. Choose your diamond and setting. When you find the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off your purchase. BlueNile.com, code WELCOME.
This is Jennifer from Linden, California. Get exclusive podcasts and more at patreon.com/partners in crime media. Just like I do.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On, the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And this week, it was a scam that tricked Hollywood crew members to fly halfway around the world for a fake movie. But what was this con job about? We'll talk about the new podcast, Chameleon. Then a homicide investigation seen exclusively through body cam, surveillance video, and social media. We get up close and personal with Netflix's American Murder, The Family Next Door. Joining me to get that done is my real-life husband and true crime co-author, former TV journalist, and the man who could watch me reading the script right now, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Kevin, your hair has gotten extremely curly.
It's crazy,
And
right?
since this is video, I mean, can you just turn around a little bit so that America can see? You look like your mom who got a perm in the back. It's like crazy. It's really something. Also with us is journalist, true crime author, licensed private investigator, certified cat lady, and the one most likely to get enraged by all kinds of injustice, Laura Bricker. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Rebecca. And I would like to add, my hair is for the first time in pandemic life long enough to go completely back in a ponytail.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
It's very exciting. Hey, it's the little things, Rebecca.
It is the little things these days, isn't it? Get your joy where you can. Like, I'm addicted to that Property Brothers iPhone game right now. It's the little things. It's the little things. Also with us, the author behind the noir novels known as the City Trilogy, host of the Strange Arrivals podcast, and our favorite naysayer, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Hey, Rebecca.
All right, let's start our first review, shall we?
I get a call from Mark saying, hey, we've got this lady, Dee Backish. Husband is CEO of Viacom. She's got a movie. She's branched out into being in production, producing this movie.
It seemed like a big break for behind-the-scenes crew members, a high-paying job on a major movie shot in Indonesia. But when they front their own expenses and fly halfway around the world, the producer is nowhere to be found.
Eddie was sucked into a story he simply couldn't have imagined. One that spans the globe, from Hong Kong to the UK. It involves nefarious bagmen, private investigators, phone sex, the FBI, and one of the longest, strangest cons in history.
In the new podcast, Chameleon, Hollywood Con Queen, host Josh Dean from The Clearing explores a long-running scam that targets those hoping to advance in the entertainment industry.
I remember driving through this, what looked like a township, and thinking, I'm a single woman on my own. I don't speak the language. It's getting dark. I can't get anyone to call me. I'm really scared now.
What is this complex scheme really about? Is it just a prank, or is it something more sinister? And can Josh and his team track down the mastermind behind the con? Now, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about plot points for Chameleon, the Hollywood Con Queen. So if you want to just get our thumbs up or thumbs down review of this podcast, go to the time code listed in our show notes. Now, Kevin Flynn.
Yes.
Josh Dean hosted The Clearing. You remember him, right?
Yep, I do.
The Clearing is one of those podcasts that I think about more after having listened to it than I thought of it while we listened to it. I actually talk about it all the time in retrospect as one of like the most creative and interesting true crime podcasts we reviewed, like really singular. Josh Dean has now struck out on his own and has created this new podcasting company with Vanessa Gregoriadis. And this is their first podcast. It does have sort of the very polished sound of like a startup company podcast, right? It sounds like there's really good people working on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's got a great story on this for this podcast series. It's got some quality people running it. You know, some of the production stuff, I mean, I think some of it's a little overdone. I mean, I think that would be one of my critiques from the podcast is that there's a lot of, you know, production stuff with
bleeps and bloops.
The people they're pretending to be when they make their calls are basically every powerful woman in Hollywood. The real ones.
Supposedly talking to this woman named Wei Yan.
She's pretending to be Deborah Snyder.
The woman, yeah.
But her Chinese name was Li Wan Zhao.
leaps and bloops and phone echoes and recreations and babies in bathtubs and stuff like that. It just seems unnecessary. Right? So it's like if they're taking a page out of the Wondery book, they should read another book.
I will say the one thing that I did notice was that audio stinger at the beginning for their company.
Chameleon. Okay. You're listening to Chameleon, a production of Campside Media. Oh.
Sounds a lot like another audio stinger for another podcast, Radio Lab.
Oh, wait, you're listening?
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
You're listening to Radio Lab.
That did stick out to me a little bit. I was like, someone got some inspiration there. But that's a quibble, we should say. I
always love starting on a quibble.
It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's not a very big quibble.
Well, I know. There's a lot to like about this podcast. So anyway, I'm just going to summarize the story real quick. I think that's fair to do. So the characters in this podcast, we've listened to the first few episodes. They are sort of behind the scenes Hollywood workers, gig economy people. One of them is a trainer who aspires to train people who are working on action films. One of them is a makeup artist, etc. They're working with a woman who says she's with a big budget movie. And in one case, it's a Chinese Hong Kong action film that seems legit. We actually see that they looked up the movie on IMDb and see it's in production and attached to huge stars. So the scam seems to be that these folks then use their own money to fly to Indonesia. They get driven around in a taxi to location scout, even though location scouting isn't part of their job. They never actually get to meet any of the film crew or producers that they've been ostensibly talking with or the lawyers or anything. And they kind of freak out and they leave. And then the producer calls them and yells at them for leaving. And that seems to be the whole scam. It's very, very confounding. Laura, when this podcast started, we first get the story of Eddie, the personal trainer who's drawn into this scam. But it's a long, like kind of a long roundabout way to getting into this story. What did you think of Eddie and his story and the way this story kind of opens?
It was unfortunate that there was so much backstory. Like they buried the lead because if, you know, I didn't need to go to Eddie's house and hear about Eddie's injuries and it just bogged down the start of this story. So by the time we got to this totally bonkers thing where Eddie's going off to Indonesia, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is a crazy story. Why are we 20 minutes into this episode before I'm hearing this story? So, you know, I feel like the setup was just a little bit too drawn out. And this is the type of story that was just so bananas that I wish there was a little setup and then they just got right into it because these details were just so compelling to listen to. Like once we got into what was happening with, and then they went there and they had to front their own money and they're like going around with these drivers that don't speak English and won't tell them where they're going and they're not really meeting anybody. I'm like, what? Are they going to be drug mules? Are they going to be killed? Like, what's happening here? So I just felt like structurally, it could have been tightened up in the beginning.
No, I agree. I actually also would have flipped it because I think Heather's story, the makeup artist story, is way more compelling than Eddie's.
The reason I had my hand on my backpack and on the door was that I felt like he was taking me somewhere, and my only way to survive was to jump out before I got to that destination. Because I felt like if I got to wherever he was taking me, that's when the bad things would happen.
Here she was. She was a woman alone in Jakarta, driving around with this strange guy who didn't speak English. And, poor woman, all she wanted was a beer. And it just was really hard to get one. But she actually had tape. Yeah, she actually had tape. She had tape from her trip. She had tape of her conversations with this fake producer. If it were me, I would have flipped. I probably would have smashed the first 2 episodes into one episode. And I would have opened with Heather, because her story to me was like terrifying in a way that Eddie's wasn't. What do you think, Toby?
I don't agree with you on that. I think they sequenced it right. I thought Eddie's story was pretty compelling, and I actually didn't mind the buildup, because what Eddie and Heather and I guess other people are going to be involved in this, and they say this, it's not the Hollywood that you think about. It's these people who are sort of working on the margins. And sort of getting a sense of what that's actually like, I thought was sort of important, because it shows the leverage that this con person has on them is that point. Even when they get a little suspicious or things aren't quite right, they're like, well, but this is a big opportunity, so I got to kind of keep going. So I thought if they'd started with Heather, then Eddie's story would have seemed kind of like a letdown. But I found that Eddie's was strong enough, and then you get to Heather's, and it's just like an escalation of it. I thought that worked pretty well.
I also agree with that, just for that reason too, because for Eddie, he just ended up leaving.
Right.
Well, he doesn't escape. He doesn't call the council. Yeah, they all lost money.
Yeah.
But also, Eddie is our entree to the whole story, right? Because Eddie's the connection to the Hollywood producers, the connection to the host. So if you heard about him second.
Right.
And I thought about this too, like these are 2 similar stories. There's probably a way to put them, and those 2 episodes are one big episode. But you might have to cut so much out to make it fit. I don't know. It could have probably been done that way, because I think things really pick up in the 3rd episode.
Didn't you think, though, that a lot of the scenes and dialogue in the episodes could have been cut? I mean, it did feel like they left everything. I mean, it did. I mean, I will tell you, I love Josh Dean's work, and I love his writing, and I'm a big fan of his, but I felt like it could have benefited from a tighter edit, and it felt very much like their producer friend, who we hear in the credits is a contributing producer to the show, the Hollywood guy. Is it Andy, who is friends with Eddie?
Yeah.
It sounds like it was important to leave him in the show, and that, maybe they didn't want to cut that because of how they got the story, but it just felt long to me. That's sort of my one issue with the first 2 episodes.
If my butt sat in the same seat as what's her name? Margot Robbie?
Margot Robbie?
Margot Robbie. I would put that in my podcast too.
Good point.
I'm not proud. I'm just saying.
Good point. Okay, forget everything I said. You're absolutely right, guys. You're absolutely right. So, Toby, what's the deal with all the scam podcasts that we're getting right now? Is scam the new murder when it comes to true crime podcasts?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. I guess the 2 sort of responses I would have to that, and I don't know when this all started, when they started doing the recording for this or the research or whatever. I feel like these scam ones are a little bit lighter than the murder ones. And I think that's one of the things I liked about this one, especially when you contrast it with the second thing we're talking about. So it's just not having something that's so soul drainingly depressing at times. Because really, I mean, people lose money, and that 100% sucks. And I'm not trying to make light of, what obviously was fiscal harm and wasted time, and being scammed isn't fun, but nobody, at least so far, has died. And really the most sort of harrowing thing that's happened is that Heather doesn't know why she's being driven away from her hotel, and kind of freaks out about it, and then eventually learns that actually he's trying to get around traffic, essentially. So she was never really in danger, but she sort of feels that she is. So yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, and I don't know if maybe people have been looking to say, okay, it's been so murder dominated in the true crime podcast space. Where else can we go? And I mean, people like con man stories. There's so many movies about it. It's sort of a natural for the genre. So maybe the question is, why did it take so long for there to be a bunch?
Well, we know Laura loves a good con man story, right, Laura?
I do. I do love a good con man story. And I also love like a good double life story when you have a con man, somebody that's like, by day, never would expect that they were actually running like, some racket in their back room that nobody knew about or whatever.
Or a llama farm.
Or a private investigation firm in her New Jersey office from home. Laura, that private investigator, Nikki, she reminded me a little bit of Laura Bricker.
Bathing her kids and taking phone calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting. But the thing that I thought was so weird, I'm like, are there no private investigators out in California where this is happening? Like, why are they calling this PI in New Jersey? I thought that was kind of strange.
Well, she does corporate work and she got hooked up by a lawyer who had hooked her up with other clients. She's good, must be good at what she does.
Good at what she does. So I'm eager to hear more from her as we go forward about, more information about what she found out. Because that's the thing is like when you're listening to this podcast, I mean, the thing that's always sort of in my mind is, are they going to be able to deliver and explaining to us like, what the heck is going on here? Because nobody seems to really be profiting from this scam. So that's, I really need to know, are we actually going to find out who's behind this and what is their motivation besides just the power of controlling people and getting them to fly halfway around the world for no apparent reason?
Yeah, I want to know if they solve it too.
Well, Laura brings up a really good point that a lot of these scam podcasts, and this is like our third in the past 2 months. It's usually about the who or the why or the how. This is the first one that I can remember that's about the what.
Yeah, like what the hell are they doing?
What is this? What's the angle?
Right.
And I mean, the what's going to lead to the how and the who and the why, right? But it's interesting that is sort of the upfront question. What the hell is this whole scam about?
Didn't it seem like...
Is it a prank?
Well, didn't it seem like the most likely explanation that we sort of got, that it could have been, I mean, we don't know because we haven't listened to the whole podcast yet, was the drug smuggling. I mean, it seemed like they sort of have these like work-a-day gig workers who, by the way, all travel with equipment and cases probably. A Hollywood production is probably a fantastic way to smuggle drugs because it involves like the transportation of giant like Pelican cases with cameras and stuff, right?
Yeah, all that stuff gets weighed, though.
Yeah, no, I know, with the bills of lading.
Yeah,
we've seen that on many. Remember that Law and Order SVU we did where they had the cocaine and the costumes?
Yeah.
And they used the bills of lading.
See, I hope this is what it is, but I feel like it's not. But I had this theory that the real con is going on against people we haven't met yet, and that they're getting all these Hollywood people, quote unquote Hollywood people, to come over to make it look like they've got Hollywood people interested in something that's going on in Indonesia. And what she's actually doing is trying to pull something on these Indonesian people.
3-dimensional chess.
Wow. I'm
bringing in all these people from Hollywood and, they're scouting locations and they're, doing this and they're doing that. And she
like
has the
Argo?
actual people. And then she sends them back and it's just like, fuck you. I'm not paying you back $6,000.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's my theory.
Laura, what did you think of Heather's experience, especially being driven around in the car? We hear the tape of the driver that she very smartly sort of sends clips to people and is like, I think I'm being kidnapped. Listen to this and translate it for me. Exactly, by the way, 100% what I would do in that situation.
What is the guy saying in the front seat in a foreign language? Well, this kidnapping is going so well. I hope she's not on to me.
Well, he was obviously, he was aware she was upset because he was communicating that to the fake producer lady, because the fake producer lady heard from the driver that she was upset. But Laura, that was scary. I mean, I would be very, very scared in that situation. Would you not be scared?
Oh, yeah. And it's like one of the recurring dreams I have. I don't know if you guys have like those recurring dreams where you can't talk or something, but I'll have the one where like somebody has broken into my house and I'm trying to call 911 and I can't dial the phone. But like something similar to this actually happened to us once when we were on vacation. And it was pretty scary. And in hindsight, it was probably just a language barrier or something, but we were taking an Uber and the guy immediately said, I know speak English. And then he canceled our ride, but we were already driving down the road with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, And we're trying to tell him where we're going. And he's like, I know speak English. And we're like, oh my God, we're going to be freaking killed. Like, he's canceled our ride with Uber.
What a great Leave It to Bricker episode that would have been.
Kevin, do you remember that time we got in an Uber and it just smelled like a giant fart? The guy had clearly like just been farting like all night in his car. And then we got in and we were just looking at each other the whole time. Like, what are we supposed to do?
Well, they do have a thing now about like, would you rate the smell of the vehicle? It's
I think it was because of our ride.
Well, there was no smell in this one, but I was relating a lot to her story because I remember Ken and Will and I were in this Uber and Ken is looking at me going like, don't do it. Like, he's like, shut up. Don't instigate. Don't do anything.
He was going to get you murdered.
He was. And we're like going the wrong way down the road. Will's on like Google Translate trying to be like, our hotel is this way. And finally at the end, what we found out is that it was actually a scam.
Yeah.
So what they were doing was they would cancel the ride like you didn't take it. And then they would say, now you pay me in cash.
Right.
So they were circumventing the rules. But at the time, like, as I was listening to her story and I was like, oh my God, she's doing exactly what I would have done. We'd be like texting, we're in this car. This is where we are. This is what the guy looks like. This is his number on his like badge hanging up there, you know, all that kind of stuff. So good
My
for
daughter
her.
did that when she was 4.
Oh, really?
We were getting ready to leave for somewhere and she was in her car seat. We went back in to get stuff and she got my phone and then she recorded this message. My parents have left me here. They say they're going to leave, but they haven't come back yet. So like she recorded this whole thing and put it back.
Sadie!
And then like days later,
God,
I like find it. I'm like, what is this? You know, what is this thing taking up all this room on my phone? And I play it. And it's her little,
ransom note.
Hey, Kevin, were you surprised, as I was, and horrified? It sounded like those consulate people in Indonesia knew a whole lot about what to do if you were the victim of some scammy operation. They had a lot of things to do at the ready. They were like, okay, do this, like they deal with it all the time.
Well, they have a checklist.
Yeah.
I mean, that's their job, Rebecca. They're like at an embassy, like, well, what can we do? Well, we can stamp passports. We can approve visas, and we can help tourists.
We can secretly be in the CIA, and we can tell you to put your passport in your bra, and don't tell the hotel manager what time you're leaving the hotel. And don't leave your bags unattended, just in case they put a secret compartment in there full of drugs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gosh.
I was like, they seem really at the ready. This must happen all the time.
Like, oh, it's a code 7. Code 7, everybody.
Toby, question for you. We hear kind of as episode 3 is wrapping up. And by the way, to me, another like slightly too long scene, that we've discovered that it's not a bunch of people sitting in a boiler room phone bank making all these phone calls and doing all these voices. It's actually just one person.
As Nicole, a relentless PI, dug into the documents, and especially tape of the scammer that she'd been accumulating, something became increasingly clear. Something really crazy. This scam, with all its characters, stretching over 6 years at least, it was just one person.
And Josh and Vanessa and the PI, they all seem like kind of amazed that it's one person who's behind all this. What do you think about that, Toby?
That doesn't surprise me at all. My office manager at my last job could 100% have like done all the logistics for this. She could not have pulled off all the voices.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like running an office where there's people going here and there, and you've got travel arrangements, and you have to know where they are, and you have to get them stuff. And I mean, that's just like a job that a lot of people do. And this one turned to the dark side, I guess. This comes up. It's like, there's no way that one person could possibly do this themselves. And I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't really seem to me to be...
Like a talented admin, you think, could absolutely pull it off?
Yeah, with enough self-motivation.
You can copy and paste
work.
a PDF, no problem.
No, but I mean, I do. I think it's really a matter of organization. It's like, can you keep track of all this stuff?
Well, if a thing is worth doing, it's worth doing well.
It's worth hiring a kick-ass admin to do it. So with that, Laura Bricker, we're going to do what we do. Let's let our audience know. Should they check out Chameleon, the Hollywood Con Queen, the new podcast podcast from Josh Dean, formerly of The Clearing. Laura Bricker, what do you think? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Chameleon?
Yeah, I would say thumbs up. I mean, I do have, like I said, I felt like there was areas where there could have been tighter editing and that the high points of the story could have been told a little bit sooner. But overall, this story, this scam is so bizarre that it doesn't matter because you want to keep listening to find out what the heck is going on here. Like, who is behind this and what is the end goal here? It's just so crazy. Like, I've never heard of anything like this. So just for that, I would listen to this. I mean, it's just bonkers. So that would be a thumbs up.
What do you think, Toby Ball? Thumbs up or thumbs down for Chameleon, Hollywood Con Queen?
Yeah, I like this a lot. You know, I think it's entertaining. It's a little bit lighter than what we're used to. And I didn't have the problems with the pacing or the editing or lack of that I think some other people did. You know, it's a little bit more of a storytelling thing, more than like actual, I guess it gets more into journalism maybe in the third, but it's a lot of like a story. So I give it a hearty thumbs up.
Kevin Flynn.
I'm going to go thumbs up as well. I guess if 2016 was the year of the wrongful conviction, I guess 2020 is the year of the Con Man podcast. I think, first of all, they start off with a good case. So that means they're going to have a good podcast story. That's always seems to be like the thing that just sets these kinds of podcast hunt. Let's go and try to find something. Dooms them from the start. But this is a good one. So it's a good story. It's not the usual financial scam. And, you don't have old ladies and llamas. And so, that makes it different. It's not flashy like The Sneak either. With jewel heists and things like that. There are a couple of unnecessary production embellishments that I think make it feel like maybe they don't feel it's strong enough to stand on its own. It is. It's an interesting story. And, Josh is promising a satisfying ending to this series. And whatever that means, unlike other podcasters, he knows what that means.
Yes.
So he should know what that looks like. So thumbs crossed for an even bigger thumbs up. Thumbs crossed, fingers crossed for a thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up too. I like the podcast a lot. I'm going to keep listening to it. And I'm also just really excited about this new production company making podcasts. It's stacked with talented people that I like and admire. I actually am familiar with Vanessa's writing and Josh's reporting. And as I mentioned, The Clearing is one of my all-time favorite true crime podcasts. So I'm really excited about this. I agree with you, Kevin, that it does feel overproduced and under-edited. I do think that when you get a lot of talented audio people together on a project like this, sometimes they like to show off what they can do. And I don't think this story needs it. It's straighter. It doesn't so much need the sound design. But like I said, those are quibbles. I think this is a strong podcast. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of it and seeing how they land the plane. I love the way that Josh landed the plane in The Clearing. I'm looking forward to seeing if he can land the plane in this one. So thumbs up for me.
Do you ever meet someone who seems kind of off? Whether it's a creepy neighbor or random phone number that keeps calling you, Truthfinder has you covered. You can search for people by name, address, phone number, email, and more. Truthfinder can be especially helpful for running confidential background checks on anyone you're planning to meet from online dating apps. Go to truthfinder.com/podcasts for a special offer. That's truthfinder.com/podcasts to access your special offer today.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com.
Moving on. Now, Kevin, we have a little business to attend to, and we're starting with an announcement, right?
Yeah.
As we play the business music during this business portion of the podcast.
When do we get business music, by the way?
I don't know. I just thought it was good to insert some music here. Otherwise, it's just us being self-promotional with no underground sass. Toby, all you have to do is listen to our podcast, and then you would hear the business music. Give us the one download, Toby. Come on.
All right.
Next week, big news, guys.
Speaking of music,
we have a brand new, shiny, delicious Crime Writers On theme song that will be premiering on the podcast next week for everyone to hear. But if you want to hear what it sounds like right now, you can check it out. We are going to be playing it in its entirety on our Patreon after show this week. So you can be the first ones to hear the new Crime Writers On podcast theme song.
So what's going to happen to our old podcast theme music?
It lives on. It's available for download on Spotify or any of the apps.
We're retiring it.
Yeah, we're retiring it. You know, Rocksteady Freddy, the saxophone player performing that version of Harlem Nocturne with Near Scott Jazz Ensemble, is my beloved ex-brother-in-law. Yes. Well, he's been ex for a long time, but
yes,
he was kind enough 6+ years ago to give us performance rights and permission to use that song in this podcast. And we love him and we love the song, but
it's not ours.
We're grown up, man.
It's not our own. Yeah, let's have something that's our own.
Now that we've been doing it for 6 years.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time.
Yes, the theme song is composed by the awesome Ty Gibbons, who did the music for Patient Zero and a bunch of other podcasts. He's just wonderful. And so you can hear that right now in the Patreon after show. Kevin, what else have we got going on Patreon right now?
We have a whole bunch of stuff that I forgot to put in the script. We have a new Leave It to Bricker.
Yep.
And Laura is being her best pet detective.
Yep.
There's some loitering pigeons. There's some rampant rabbits. There's stuff like that. We've got the Crime Writers On after show. Yep. And we're going to be having an announcement about a new live Married with podcast.
That's right. And we should say also on the Crime Writers On after show this week, we're going to be talking about the news breaking around the Caliphate podcast.
Right.
Why the New York Times has decided to examine its own reporting and perhaps re-report part of that podcast.
Looks like one of us who was the thumbs down doesn't look so silly now.
Was that you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you give the Peabody Award-winning Caliphate a thumbs down?
I did.
What is the matter with you?
I knew things.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that on today's Patreon after show as well. Now, Kevin, before we move on, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Yes, our Patreon patron saints are Shannon Havenhill and Catherine Yantz. Bless you.
Bless you indeed. All right. Shall we move on to our next review?
We keep moving on, yes.
Let's get it done.
I'm calling because I'm concerned about a friend of mine. I dropped her off at her house at 2 a.m. last night, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her this morning.
In 2018, Shanann Watts and her 2 daughters disappeared from her Colorado home. Police canvassed the area, reached out to the media, and relied heavily on information provided to them by her husband, Chris.
I think about, did I cause this? Did I make her feel like she needed to leave? Maybe she sat there and thought about it, do I really need to stay here right now? If he doesn't love me.
Netflix's new documentary, American Murder, The Family Next Door, is presented without narration or interviews. It's told exclusively through texts, Facebook posts, videos from the Watts family, as well as body cam and surveillance footage from police. What results is a real-time chronicling of a triple homicide investigation, which leads back to Chris.
I want them back home,
But you know they're not coming back home. You know that.
I don't know in the back of my head. I hope they come back home.
But you know they're not.
American Murder uses 21st century technology to eschew the conventions of most true crime documentaries. What results is an inside look at a family's slow roll to tragedy that is compelling, voyeuristic, and indisputably unique. We are going to be giving away spoilers for American Murder, so if you don't want to hear them, even though this is a real case and the documentary basically covers that case, go to the estimated time code in our show notes to hear our thumbs up or thumbs down review. One other caveat, I did interview the director behind American Murder, Family Next Door, for the Netflix podcast, You Can't Make This Up, another podcast I host. If you want to check out my interview, listen to You Can't Make This Up. I'm actually really proud of the show. A listener told me I never talk about it here, and I should. But anyway, I interviewed the director of this movie. We talk about how it got made, which is an interesting conversation that, if you want to hear it, go ahead and do that.
There's a whole Rebecca Lavoie podcast you don't have to pay to listen to?
That's right. A whole other one. Now, Kevin, you said to me when we were watching this that this is a documentary that couldn't have been made before now, right?
Yeah, I mean, just the advances in sort of technology, everything from, all these Facebook posts that provide a look back at the players here, the body cameras that cops wear now, the surveillance video. When we got into writing true crime, if somebody had a diary, it was like, gold mine. We could find out all sorts of stuff. And by the time we were doing our last true crime book, the victim had a very active Facebook page. And so you could get into their mindset on a certain day. So you couldn't have done this kind of documentary before now.
I mean, I think it does make a difference that Shanann Watts herself was very performative on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, she not only had a personal Facebook page, but the director, Jenny, told me that a lot of the video used in the documentary is also from her MLM. She had like a second Facebook page because she belonged to a multi-level marketing company. And a lot of her personal branding was around sharing and making videos of herself with her family. And she also had a lot of videos on her phone, which the documentarians had access to both her phone and her computer because the family gave them to the documentarians. So, there's the Shanann stuff. But Laura, what really drew me into this documentary when I started watching it, and this is very straight true crime, right? On paper, it's not different than other true crime stuff that's on Investigation Discovery and stuff or whatever. But the use of the body cam footage to bring you in at the beginning into this TikTok investigation, to me, was just an outstanding piece of media making. What did you think about that?
Yeah, it was, at first I was kind of like, wait, is this really what the video looks like? Because it was just such good quality and it had, you were hearing what everybody was saying and you were like right there going along as this was unfolding. So I never knew it's like sometimes when I used to do private investigator work, you'd get surveillance footage and some places would be great and some would be horrible. Like Market Basket had fantastic surveillance tapes. But the police, I know, who knew? When people were like stealing lobster rolls and stuff, you could see them clear as day. But
noted.
I know. So just keep that in mind out there, people in New England. I was just really amazed at just how high quality the camera was. And as it was happening, like I liked at one point, I'm just going to call him piece of shit husband left the room. And there's that other guy and he's like, something's wrong with him. Something doesn't seem right.
Yeah, the neighbor with the driveway cam.
Yeah, and I was like, that guy, good for him. But I liked that we watched it play out, and I liked how they kind of put him off in the beginning, and they're like, oh, well, it could be this, it could be that. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, it's not usually this jumpy, something's up. And he was right.
Now, Toby, before we get into what I know is going to be an interesting conversation with you just about the nature of true crime documentary, because I know you have feelings, is it not a great argument for all the debate there is out there about police wearing body cams, which all the data shows, by the way, actually does improve police community relations and decreases incidents of police misconduct and increases incidents of police being able to back up their work? Does this documentary not show that there is value in investigators wearing these things, having them on all the time? Because when you look back at the footage they were able to capture, they were actually capturing clues to the case on their body cam footage as they did the canvassing of the neighborhood, as they interviewed Chris Watts in his driveway and in his house. That's all I could think about was like, cops should wear these things all the time.
They do, don't they?
No, they don't.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that's not really why I think it's important for cops to wear.
No, I know. No. This is what I'm saying is it's another benefit. I mean, they actually...
It ought to be a selling point for law
we get to have like this some like voyeuristic ability to watch them work when they're talking to people.
No, but think for an evidentiary purposes, right? They have on video their first encounter with the killer. They have it on video without having him in an interrogation room. They have, you know what I mean? Like they're able to see that he picks up her cell phone and says, this is her lifeline. They're able
He doesn't have to testify to that. It's much stronger than showing the video.
Yeah.
You know?
That. I could see that as a trial tool or whatever. It's, you don't have to take their word for it.
But Toby, you do think this is voyeuristic. Let's just get it out there. Go ahead.
When you were talking about this whole beginning, I guess my question is like, to what end? I mean, it seems like what's interesting that happens is that that this guy did it, and you're watching him pretend like he didn't. And you're watching how the cops are kind of handling it. And it just seems voyeuristic. Like, the whole thing I watched, and I was like, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? Beyond some kind of voyeuristic thrill that I'm like kind of a fly on the wall while all this different stuff happens. And I know the outcome, and isn't it creepy, that you're seeing him and the way he's acting, and isn't that creepy? And like, they don't even know, and he's saying this, and this guy kind of knows. And it just, like, all the stuff that we review that I think is good, and I think there's a hell of a lot of good true crime out there, but it feels like it's kind of moved beyond this. When it's all over, there's not much to be said about the case.
Right.
It's not particularly interesting. The saving grace, I think, for me at least, that I wasn't just like completely put off, although I was very put off, but what made it sort of some excuse is that you can see why Shanann's family wanted to do it, because people think that she killed her kids.
Or that she was a bitch and had it coming.
Right.
Shanann's father, Frank Ruzek, says his daughter and his grandchildren have been ridiculed, demeaned, slandered, and mocked in the most vicious ways you can imagine.
Please just stop. Get on with your lives. Leave ours alone.
And this is a way of showing that that's not true. So I can understand why they would want to participate in this, and would even be willing to let filmmakers in on this very, very personal stuff. And this is something like when I was working for the Crimes Against Children Research Center, and we'd be thinking about doing a webpage and stuff. It's like, well, what do you do for visuals for something like that? And they're like, well, how about kids on swings and stuff? It's like, yeah, but it's kids being used as like potential victims. Like that doesn't seem right.
Right.
And all this footage of these cute little girls, and it's all with the idea that their father's going to murder them. And it's uncomfortable, and not in a way that you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in a way that, like, are we really doing this?
Yeah. Now, Kevin, as Toby pointed out, that, we have, I guess, as a genre, true crime has moved beyond this kind of story. But this is classic true crime. They know who did it, beginning, middle, and end of a case. It's just done very differently here, which I think... what true crime was before Serial, before it became about wrongful convictions and discovering the truth and investigative journalism kind of putting its way into the lane, it was this. It was voyeuristic. Look at this horrible thing that happened and follow along for the ride, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I think it has...
our books are like that to some extent.
Yeah, it has all the elements of what could be a very basic investigation discovery half-hour special, right? They have all this video and everything, and I think it was a bold choice to say, look, we're not going to do the thing where now we're going to do an interview with the cop, and we're going to do the drone shots over the town and have a narrator with, this breathless exposition, but just show what happened. And then to make these... with just a minimal amount of sort of music to move the story with more like editing story choices. But like they could have just taken this and gone like, okay, we're going to start back at the marriage. We're going to go all the way forward chronologically. And then all of a sudden we're going to introduce a girl, an affair. And then who's going to die and who's going to be the real killer? But they didn't do it like that. I think they realized they had the makings of some really good stuff. And you don't take sushi-grade tuna and make chicken of the sea, right? We're going to lay it out on the plate as it is.
Yeah. Laura, what were your thoughts about that? Toby, I think I'm going to be frank, less accustomed to traditional true crime than we are. We all wrote true crime books that are essentially a voyeuristic ride-along with an investigation to, let's be honest, to entertain and somewhat to titillate, and also to say what happened, to get the criminal justice story out there. That's what this is. I think it would be disingenuous to say that this isn't a piece of entertainment about a sensational case. That's what it is. It is voyeuristic. Absolutely. it is uncomfortable for that reason, absolutely. But it's also not new, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I wasn't. I guess it didn't hit me like that because I'm like, the books that we've written and writing, any type of an in-depth newspaper or magazine story about a case, you often do these kind of interviews. And if you have cooperation from family or friends, you're going to be possibly getting a look at social media of somebody that's, a victim in a case. They might show you the social media, or like, I remember trying to negotiate to get photos of, people from their wedding and things like that. So I didn't take it like the voyeuristic. I just thought, as I was watching this, I kept thinking, what would the case of like my murder look like if they used my social media to tell my story?
Yeah, it's true.
And I'm like, that was the thing. It's like, you can say this is voyeuristic and this is intrusive, but we are living in a time where, and I'm like a person, I'm always posting on social media. People always like tease my husband, like, oh, what did you do? Never mind. Let me check your wife's social media page, because there are different types of people. People post your best self out there, and there's people that chronicle everything. So I think it's just a different time. And in this case, that really gave us a window into this real time following along as to what was happening in their lives, their marriage, but also seeing these little videos and pictures of, it was heartbreaking. Some of them were just absolutely heartbreaking. I think it's just a really creative way to use that to tell the story in a way that was really effective.
So you don't think there's an issue with showing videos of two little girls like playing with the person who's going to murder them?
Yes. I did have, that was very difficult. Yes. I'm Toby, just so you know, like, I don't disagree with you in principle. You are well within your rights to be like deeply uncomfortable about this. And that made me deeply uncomfortable. There was video of him playing with them like a couple of days before we know he killed them. There's video of it, and it's in the documentary, but it's also what happened, And I really think that, knowing how I know the family participated in this, they were extremely interested in making a victim-centric story that put the girls and Shanann in the center of it, because the whole story had become about Chris and whether or not Shanann had it coming because she was a bitch. Like, that's what it became. They got death threats. I think, yes, it's exploitative. Yes, it's voyeuristic. I also understand why they did it. But can we just move on to the case? Because I do want to talk about this a little bit, because there's some, just taking the media part of it out of it.
Yeah.
There's some elements of this crime that are really unusual. Toby, just in terms of the case, is it surprising to you that you could have this kind of a killer, Chris Watts, who, with no history at all of domestic violence, no history of abuse, none, ends up committing a crime this horrific? This is one of the most horrific crimes I think we've, in any media that we've covered, but also a horrific American crime in recent history. It seems extremely unusual.
Yeah, it does. I wondered, I didn't wonder enough to Google it, but I did wonder if, he loses so much weight. I just was wondering if maybe he was taking, steroids or was doing something like that. Like, I don't know, but it is, in some ways it's surprising. In other ways, it's just like, it's like one of the oldest stories in the book, It's like, oh, I found this, the cop says it, you found this younger hot girlfriend, and you wanted to have this different life, and that's how you decided to go about it. To be honest, the one part that I thought was pretty interesting was the whole thing with the lie detector. And I'm sorry if I'm jumping ahead.
Oh, the investigation. Talk about it later. No, yeah.
Yeah. So that part I thought was interesting, because I don't think I've ever seen quite the way people use lie detectors. Just knowing that they can't be used in court, but the sort of psychology behind it, I don't know why he decided to take that lie detector.
Right.
Or why he didn't try and get a lawyer instead of his dad.
Right.
But then once he's done it and he fails, and they're just like, we're way past the point where you can walk this back.
Right.
And he tries to brazen it out. And I don't know how edited this thing is, but it seems like he tries to brazen it out for about 5 minutes. And he's like, all right, well, fuck it, I did it.
Yeah.
And then he tries to like mitigate it by saying she killed the kids. But that, of like the entire thing, like I found that little part of it was a super interesting piece.
I thought so too. They're really good cops. I mean, they did it the right way. And they were honest with him. They weren't dishonest with him. She said, if you did it, you shouldn't be here sitting here taking this lie detector test.
If you did have something to do with their disappearance, it would be really stupid for you to come in and take a polygraph today. Exactly. Right? It would be really dumb. You should not be here right now sitting in this chair if you had anything to do with Shanann and the little girl's disappearance. Okay?
So the fact that you're sitting here doing it makes me think you might not have done it. So let's get on with it, shall we? And it's like she knows. I mean, you can tell she knows that he did it, but it worked. Kevin, what are your thoughts on the case itself?
It is very interesting, these family annihilator type cases.
That is the kind of killer he is, right?
Yeah.
That is a kind of killer, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple different buckets that those kinds of killers fall into. And I think normally we would think, looking in, and you touched on it, was this a guy who was abusive? Because that's sort of the most typical profile. There's a history of domestic violence in the relationship, and not somebody who, appears to be somewhat docile. It was a bold choice for the storytellers to portray the folks the way they did, because Shanann does not always come off great, and Chris sometimes comes off looking, very human, and they make them three-dimensional characters.
I'm definitely the dominant one in the relationship. He's very sweet. He's very calm. I'm the high-strung one in the relationship.
Not everybody appreciates that when it's a homicide story. They want black and white and good, but it's more real that way to tell it like that. Part of the reason why it's an important story is because if he were the kind of guy who they had been, arrested multiple times for domestic violence, you'd say, oh, red flags, you could see it coming.
Right.
And a lot of times you can't. And here's a situation where it's the guy with a really long fuse who snaps. And how do you see that coming? That's just human savagery.
Yeah. The crime itself was unbelievable. It really is unbelievable to imagine. The family annihilator is kind of the hardest kind of killer to wrap your mind around, because if your beef is you want to move on, this is the worst possible way to do it. There's no logic to it. People are going to wonder.
There's also a profile where the family annihilator is somebody who fails and can't provide for the family anymore and is ashamed and kills the family.
Right.
And this is a whole third.
Yeah, there's a bucket that's religiously motivated. There's a bucket that's
the one. Yeah.
So there's a few different buckets, and as Jenny, the director, told me, and I looked it up, and it's true. Family annihilators have some profile characteristics, and one of them is they usually kill their families on a Sunday in August. Weird fact.
What?
Yes, and it's true. Anyway.
Okay.
Laura Bricker, what are your thoughts about this case?
This is probably one of the, like you said, more horrific cases. Me, I worked in defense. I always try to look at both sides of this. I was yelling at the TV when I was watching this. I was just this guy is such a piece of shit. It's horrific. And then when it flips back to the end and you know what happened, and then you watch all this some of the clips from the beginning again, I don't even know how to describe it. It's such an upsetting case. It's just you look at him and you're like, how could somebody do this? It defies reason. We've covered so many really awful cases, and we've heard of all sorts of horrible things that have happened, but the children, it's just, I can't even imagine. It's just so awful to think about how somebody could do that to their own children. It really, and then the reason behind it was just so ridiculous to me.
Sexy new girlfriend, right?
And how would you like to be her? Pictured in her underwear in the documentary.
I know. Well, the only thing they had, let's be real. She didn't participate, so we don't have any footage of her. She wasn't questioned, with body cam footage. It was just all we have was her interview with police and the photo that he took of her during their time together while Shanann was in North Carolina or whatever. And it's that, by the way, that pan over that photo where you see her and then it pans over and you see him taking it is one of the creepiest moments in the whole thing, because that
was a good shot.
It was. There is a lot of art in this thing, even, despite what we may disagree about its worth, there's a lot of artistry on display.
Yeah, I think that's what's kind of frustrating about the whole thing, and to my mind, is because, again, when we're talking about what is it about this case, and it's it's so horrific, and it's so outside of the normal, and it's all this, the Jeffrey McDonald case is in some ways almost exactly the same thing, right? It's we just talked about it.
Yeah,
right?
He killed his wife, his two kids,
he killed his wife and two daughters. And that's a much more interesting case, I think, because he comes up with this alibi. I mean, it's not really an alibi, but this alternative to what happened. And there's like a real question about, was it really hippies? And then there's a whole bunch of weird stuff that happens afterwards with the way he acts and claiming to have killed one of the people who killed his wife and all this bizarre stuff. That's kind of an interesting story. Nothing other than the sort of savagery and unusualness of this is any interest. I mean, they figured it out almost immediately.
Toby, can I just ask you a question though?
Yes.
Would they not have figured out the Jeffrey McDonald case almost immediately? And would it have been almost as cut and dried in this had there been GPS and credit card receipts and video and all of the real time, like geolocation and social media stuff that they were able to pull immediately to like solve this? I mean, that didn't exist when Jeffrey McDonald probably killed his family. So he was able to come up with this alternative theory.
Then that wouldn't have been very interesting either.
Okay, well, I see what you mean.
So in the end, like, I feel like as a movie and sort of the way she puts it together and stuff, I kind of feel like it's, and we've done this before, I think more with like HBO shows, or at least I've made the comment before, where it seems like there's a lot of thought and craft put into a story that in and of itself, I don't feel like is really worthy of the amount of craft that she puts into it. I mean, I just feel like the appeal is lower than the art that goes into it.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we should do what we do. Let our listeners know what we think of American Murder, The Family Next Door. It's a Netflix true crime documentary. It's about an hour and a half long. It's about the murder of Shanann Watts and her kids by her piece of shit husband, Chris Watts, and the real-time investigation that went into solving that case. Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for American Murder, The Family Next Door?
I'm going with thumbs up. This case is heartbreaking, rage-inducing, like just absolutely makes you sick to your stomach when you hear the details. But this was a really well done documentary. It was something that like I didn't look away from the whole time I was watching because it had so much interesting information and this just really creative use of media and social media and police body cams, which is something we've never really seen done this way before. So I would say thumbs up. I thought it was really interesting. I would like to know a little bit more on the background of Chris Watts, just to like psychologically understand a little more about him. But that's just like a minor detail.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for American Murder, The Family Next Door?
Yeah, I'm a thumbs down. I really did not like this, and I think I've explained my reasons.
So if you are in the spoiler-free version, just looking for the review, you might want to go back because Toby was talking about it for about 5 minutes before we started this review part. Kevin Flynn, what about you? Thumbs up or thumbs down for American Murder, The Family Next Door?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to be a thumbs up.
Don't apologize.
No, I mean, I respect Toby, but I just disagree with him on this one. As far as documentaries go, like when the camera is there, it affects things going on around them. Not any camera, but that documentarian's camera, right? People act differently. They do things differently. Here's like almost a pure form of documentary because the cameras are there, but it doesn't affect what's happening in real time. So it's unlike any other sort of video documentary that we've seen before. If I have a quibble, it's that I think the name is horrible.
Yeah, that's lame.
The name is so basic and unoriginal, and this is something that's very original. I mean, I guess Crime and Punishment and Tale of Two Cities are pretty lame titles when it comes down to it. But this is unlike anything that I've seen before. It's unique. I don't view the use of publicly posted video as necessarily voyeuristic. It is the basis for any kind of crime story that we do, but it's not every documentary that is told this way, and it is something that I will not forget.
Yeah, I agree. I'm giving it a thumbs up too. I am fascinated by this documentary. When I first watched it before I taped the Netflix podcast, I came into your office, Kevin, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about what I'm about to say, but I love this very sensational, not typically in my lane documentary. I loved it. It could have so easily veered into like the cheesiness of Investigation Discovery. It is the same on paper as a lot of bad true crime, but it's elevated in its art. And To me, it's like the difference between a schlocky, dare I say, Anne Rule true crime book and, you know, a really literary true crime book. It is the same. It's you're going into a story. Somebody committed a crime. There's an investigation. It's solved, and there's a punishment. I mean, it's the same story. But it's elevated to me. Yes, it's voyeuristic. Yes, it's sensational. Yes, there's a lot about it to not like, and I don't blame anybody who falls on that side of it. But I really, really liked it. I watched it twice. I may watch it again because I just am so fascinated just by how the thing was done. So a big thumbs up for me for American Crime, The Family Next Door. And Toby, I hope we're still friends. Are we?
We can work through it.
Do you ever meet someone who seems kind of off? Whether it's a creepy neighbor or random phone number that keeps calling you, Truthfinder has you covered. You can search for people by name, address, phone number, email, and more. Truthfinder can be especially helpful for running confidential background checks on anyone you're planning to meet from online dating apps. Go to truthfinder.com/podcasts for a special offer. That's truthfinder.com/podcasts to access your special offer today.
Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code WELCOME to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code WELCOME at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Now it's time for my favorite part of the podcast, a little something I like to call the crime
of the week.
2 former corrections officers in Oklahoma have been charged with cruelty toward 4 inmates. Prosecutors say the guards put the prisoners in a locked room and then played the children's song Baby Shark on a loud loop for 2 hours.
God.
And we should mention the prisoners were also handcuffed against a wall. Completely not cool, obviously. The guards were fired for good reason. I think the handcuffing on the wall is enough. But let's talk about that song, Baby Shark, for 2 hours. The good news is they didn't make them do the Baby Shark dance. So, panel, my question for you about the crime of the week is, what song would you not want to be subjected to on an endless loop? Laura Bricker, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the theme song from Caillou. I don't know if y'all remember. Caillou. You got that whiny little voice.
Whiny. Oh. Don't you want to slap the shit out of that kid? That cartoon kid.
Why are we going to the park today?
Because I'm going to leave you there.
Caillou.
Should we even let the rest of us even weigh in on this? Toby Ball, what song would you not want to have to listen to for 2 straight hours?
I had some other kid song, but I can't top that. So I'll just say that freaking unicorn song that they play at all the Irish pubs.
Oh, they're a green alligator, the long neck geese. They do like the hand things just like the Baby Shark, right? Green alligators and long neck geese.
There are a couple of Irish bars we go to in D.C. back in the 90s, and I would just get despondent when they would start playing that song.
You didn't like that one as much as and it's no, never. No.
That's not bringing back fond memories either, but it's better than the unicorn song.
There are plenty of other good Irish songs, but apparently those are the only 2 that are like on an endless loop in every pub in America. Kevin Flynn, what about you? What song could you not listen to for 2 hours?
Oh, man, I think sometimes when we touch, I think like just coming down around again, and like, oh no.
You gotta get in touch with your feelings, man.
It's too much. The honesty is too much, Toby.
Apparently.
I gotta go with a song by an artist who I really respect as a songwriter and admire for lots of other reasons in the pantheon of American music. And Kevin, despite the fact that this was your favorite song with which to woo the ladies when you were in high school, I got to go with Hello by Lionel Richie.
Oh, my God.
I love Lionel Richie. Oh,
Kevin Flynn, do you want to just tell people how you used to woo the ladies with that song?
No.
He used to call the ladies. And they'd pick up the phone.
I think Facebook is saying, wrap it up.
And he would just start playing the song and hold the phone next to the speaker of his record player. All right, that is going to do it for us.
I got so much.
How'd that work out?
Oh, man.
Hello.
I got WAP before WAP was WAP.
No, you did not. All right, we should probably end it on that note. But before we do, Laura Bricker, do we have a cat of the week this week?
I don't know if we're going to do a cat. I think I'm going to do a llama this week.
What?
Did I do a llama last week?
You did a llama. It's like a cow or an elephant or something, yes.
Is it a Chilean llama or a Bolivian llama?
This is a real life llama that you can go see, Toby. His name is Bruce. And he's a guard llama, and he protects the chickens. But I learned a really interesting...
Guard llama.
He is. He protects the chickens from predators. But here was an interesting fun fact. Llamas can not only kick backwards, they kick forward with their front legs and bite predators.
Wow.
So, Bruce,
And they can do the limbo.
yeah. And they cost a lot of money. So that was interesting. But I thought it was very interesting that Bruce the guard llama, and sometimes the chickens ride him. He's at a farm up the street from me. I recently went to go meet him. So Bruce is going to be my pet of the week this week.
Nice.
Do you have any llamas named Caillou?
No, but Kevin, I'm looking for a new cat. I'm finally decided it's time to add another cat to our household. And there was a cat named Kevin that needed a home.
Oh. Too bad Kevin
Was he
hates
fixed?
cats.
Yeah, he was. They all get fixed. They all get the snip, Kevin.
All right, Laura Bricker, folks want to reach out to you, perhaps on Twitter, to pitch their animals to be cat of the week. It could be any kind of animal. Obviously, we have no standards. How can they find you online?
At Laura Bricker.
And Toby Ball, folks want to reach out to you with their agreement on your thumbs down review of American Murder, The Family Next Door. How can they find you on Twitter?
At TobyBall NH.
And Kevin Flynn, if folks want to reach out to you and compliment you on your giant Play-Doh Fun Factory wig of curly hair, how can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me and my hair at Kevin P. Flynn.
And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find me at Reb Lavoie or follow the show at Crime Writers On. You can watch this very podcast on our show produced exclusively for Facebook Watch. Find it by searching your app or at facebook.com/watch/Crime Writers On podcast. You can even watch it on your giant smart TV if you want, but I wouldn't recommend it. I encourage you to join the amazing community in our official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group or check out our regular old Facebook page. Support the show on patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media, and you will get the Crime Writers On After Show, Married with Podcast, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, and Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. Our theme song was performed for the last time by the New York Ska Jazz Ensemble and used with permission. Our line editor is the very handsome Henry Lavoie, assisted by Olivia Burdett. Our social media and newsletter maven is fellow Taco Bell stan Meredith Plunkett. This show was recorded in the Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, the closet in our basement where it sounds like 4 people are making a podcast, but it's actually just me. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Later.
Were we just talking about how much tighter we've gotten?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
We're making changes on the fly.
Podcast Kegels. That's how tight we got.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, boy.
You didn't care for that?
Oh, man, you got your voice back, and now you're back, too.
I'm sassy.
Partners in Crime Media.
You can start your day off right.
when you find a professional on Angie to get your plumbing right first. Connect with skilled professionals to get all your home projects done well. Visit Angie.com. You can do this when you Angie that.